Hip hop is supposed to be a collective, empowering space, especially for those in the margins. As we can see, page 41, the author says, let me find page 41. That's it. The author conceptualized hip hop as page 41. I'm quoting, a place where people gather to create knowledge and exchange information. Hip hop is a place for introspection, exploration, and a space to create community wisdom, according to the author. Yet, the author questions why women have been relegated to distant positions within the movements. And it's a question that a lot of people ask. In order to put more weight to that question, the author brilliantly reminds us the vital, instrumental role of Black women in community and in public spaces. Because this continues a long legacy of activism from Black women in the United States. And the author also reminds us how Black women have used art, literature, poetry, music to assert a presence in public life, to speak up against injustice, and to bring awareness to the African American experience in the United States. The author gives examples of blues music and the civil rights movements. She also mentions authors such as Alice Walker and June Jordan, who have used words as activism. They are all mentioned chapter 2. Let me just double check something. I just wanted to check it is the right chapter. Yes, it's chapter 2. So overall, the author sheds light on Black women's commitment to social justice and their long tradition of advocacy. It is very well explained in the book with a wealth of historical details. So you see, Black women have done so much. The author also talks about the Black women literary renaissance that also took place in the 70s and in the 80s in the United States. It was impressive. It was an incredible moment. This renaissance allowed for the voices of Black women to take the center stage within the American literary world. This renaissance came with limits because the center stage was narrow, because we still have to think about institutional racism and structural barriers that Black women had to face. But it was a start. So, in spite of this long tradition of advocacy, this long tradition of using literature, using art, using life to promote social justice, the situation was difficult for Black women because they were facing a double marginalization, which is explained in the book. Most of the time, they were left out of race based discussions or organizations because of their position as women, because they were women. And also, most of the time, they were left out of gender based discussions or organizations because they were black. They were women, but they were black. So it was a double marginalization that they had to navigate. So it's like, can we leave? Can we find a place? Can we find a place to be ourselves and to have a voice and to be heard and to be seen and to have our experiences validated? Listen, that's why I'm always so amazed when I hear the stories of all these amazing women who have been able to make something for themselves in spite of all the high, spiky barriers that they had to face, really. And regarding this book mentions an anthology that I still have to read. It's called All the Women Are White, All the Blacks Are Men, but Some of Us Are Brave. And it was published in 1982, and I have to read this. I really have to get me this book. So yeah, the situation of Black women at the time was not easy, and it brings us more context as this historical difficulty to include Black women within social, artistic, or cultural movements. The book also explores the difficulty in, as mentioned, race related organizations for Black women. There was always this tension of, there's the willingness to belong, to be included in race related organization, to fight for the community, and the disappointment of seeing how women could be treated within these movements. So, here we have an interesting history lesson that helps us understand the difficulties Black women have traditionally faced in the United States to take part or to take a place within social or cultural movements. And the question is, can hip hop be a movement that does things differently and that includes women fully and in a dignified way? How can women be supported? How can women be celebrated in the movement? How can their voices be respected? Because that is the next step. Can hip hop do better in including Black women, in celebrating and in recognizing all the groundbreaking work they have done at the start of the movement, all the input they have provided to help this movement take form, all the energy they have put forward to help shape hip hop culture? So, this is a big question. And the book moves forward a little bit, and that's how we move from chapter 2 to chapter 3. We explore the complicated relationship between rap music. This time we focus on the rap music because hip hop is the movement and rap is the music genre. Although I did watch a video not long ago, where was it Big Daddy Kane who was explaining that hip hop can also be seen as a music genre. Because I do sometimes speak about, oh, this is a hip hop artist. You can feel like this is hip hop music. But when I read about hip hop, it is always explained that rap is the music genre and hip hop is the culture. But yeah, hearing Big Daddy Kane saying that hip hop can also be a music genre, it's actually interesting and it makes sense. But that's a story for another day. But yeah, the author explored the conflictual relationship between rap music and how women are viewed. Because yeah, we need to include women and we need to include them in a respectful, dignified way. So how come there is this tension between some, I have to say some, I forgot to say some, this tension between some of the rap songs and how women are viewed? What's the issue with the portrayal of Black women? A lot of it has to do with internalized oppression, according to the author, and also according to other critics such as bell hooks. But before we speak about the portrayal, let's go back quickly to the voice. The voice. How can we respect women's voice? So the author Gwendolyn explores the difficult position, the difficulty of having a voice on your own and having to protect your community. How can you speak up your truth and avoid community backlash? This is a big question. And this question can be crystallized by, for instance, because I did say that the author goes beyond hip hop and explore literature, also cinema and history. But this question can be crystallized by the works of authors such as Alice Walker and Tozake Shange. Because here, and it's mentioned in the book, this is all from this brilliant author, and it really made me think. These writers, all they did was finding the strength to speak about some truth that are often hidden. They had the strength to talk about realities that we could no longer hide. They were talking about situations that had to be challenged. They were asking for visibility. They were asking for justice. They were asking for a sense of dignity toward the experience of, and actually the experiences of Black womanhood. That's all they wanted. However, their work has been met with a lot of backlash. I think the author actually talks about tremendous backlash, and this is once again very well explained, very well illustrated. But clearly, why should it be an issue for Black women to be outspoken? Why should it be an issue for a Black woman to ask for justice, to speak freely about her experience? Now, the issue is the context. In the United States, where being African American was already a vulnerable position, where the community was already in a fragile position because of an overwhelming history of violence, segregation, and dehumanization. As artists and Black women, they didn't want to demonize their community, but at the same time, there was this urgent need to tell one's truth. So it was a bit like a double violence that a lot of Black women artists had to face. That was the price to be able to speak about their own experience, to speak about their own truth. So it was a very difficult position for these women. What was there to do? How could we allow some space for these women to tell their stories freely in a safe way? How can we make sure that these stories are heard and understood and not seen as a way to demonize a community? It was very hard within a context of racism, within a context of exclusion, a context of violence towards the African American community as a whole. Still, these women persisted, and that's why today the work of these authors is celebrated because they were resilient, they persisted, they did not break in the face of threats, in the face of public outcry, they did not break in the face of attacks, and that was a heavy, wonderful work of resistance that needs to be celebrated, that still echoes in Black women today. So, a huge, huge, huge thank you to these women for their resilience, for how they have been to resist, for how they fought to tell these stories to make us feel seen. So, I'm like, I'm not gonna cry. I want to cry, but I'm gonna have to press pause and cry because literally I'm teary eyed when I think about it. Because if I look at my personal story, what gave me the strength to believe I could speak up regardless of anything was in my story is because I've started to read Toni Morrison. I started to read Alice Walker. This woman told me what happened to you was not okay, and you have the right to speak up. You have the right to reclaim your life. You have the right to reclaim your dignity. You have the right to reclaim your story, and you hold the pen to write your story. Okay, so if this woman did not resist, no, I'm like, hats off, all my respect, deep respect. Whew, so yeah, these women, they paved the way. They listen. And as far as hip hop is concerned, the author reminds us that thankfully we also have within hip hop women who have resisted, women who have fought to tell their story no matter what. They made a place for themselves. And we are going to talk about Queen Latifah. And I'm getting so emotional because Queen Latifah is also an important woman for me. Reading her book, reading her memoir, also created ripples of healing, understanding, self-compassion, courage in my life. And her music, Queen Latifah. When I discovered her music, I was still very young. I was a teenager, and I think the first song I've heard from her was Unity. The lyrics, the lyrics. You know what she told me? She told me that as a woman, as a young girl, I have to be respected. If I if I grew up or if I'm evolving in a place where where women are seen a certain way, where rape culture is prevalent or it's normalized, remember who you are. You're a woman. It doesn't mean that you have to be second to anyone because of your gender. So I loved it. So monumental. Anyways, Queen Latifah is mentioned in this book, and Queen Latifah, let's come on, she's a pioneer. And this same song, Unity, UNITY, which won a Grammy in 1993, definitely marked a milestone as far as storytelling is concerned and as far as celebrating women's voice in cultural movement and here hip hop. Through her music, Queen Latifah definitely showed us that she is someone who is pro community. Okay, she's going to respect her community, she's going to encourage people to be positive members of their community. She was all about uplifting messages, uplifting the community. She was about love, unity, and as the author reminds us, through her music she was never afraid to call for self-respect and to call for collective actions. At the same time, she made it a big point to defend Black womanhood.
Thank you, my sisters. Y'all my sisters in the name of rap. Be black. Black is beautiful. I've always celebrated the woman because I was raised by a strong black woman and raised by a father who loves women. We can't live without each other. I wanted to celebrate us because I know together we stand stronger than when we tear each other apart. And I've seen enough of that. So respect to all the female MCs on the stage tonight.
Queen Latifah did shy away from the label feminist, but her music did radiate feminist values. She never hesitated to talk about domestic abuse and gender based violence in her music to bring awareness on things that shouldn't be hidden and that should never be normalized. Her tone in her music was warm, assertive, empowering, embracing. She was pedagogical and she also established her position. You will have to respect me. She showed love to her community. She talked about her day to day experiences as a Black woman, but at the same time, she was not negotiating respect. For me, Queen Latifah is the real deal because she did all of this, but I also admire her strength. She was never afraid to challenge other artists within the movement about the representation of Black women within rap music. So Queen Latifah is definitely a queen. She is a legend and she needs more than flowers. She needs her own garden at this stage. So she is an example of success. She is an example of someone who has been able to navigate this very difficult position of being in a community, in a minority group that is targeted, that faces an overwhelming amount of injustice, but all the while being able to speak about your truth and still uplift your community. We need more Queen Latifahs. We need more of this. This success story doesn't erase the complicated relationship between hip hop and women, and it also doesn't erase the complicated representation of women in rap music. Unfortunately, there are still issues that needs to be addressed regarding the representation of women in rap music. The objectification, the commodification, the stereotypes, the degrading lyrics that we can see in some rap songs, that's a big issue. And the author points out the difficult position for women listeners like me. We love the creativity, we love the spirit, we love the essence of hip hop. I mean, I love all of this, I love everything about hip hop. But sometimes the message is no, it needs to be it needs to be reworked. Okay, it needs to be improved. The lyrical content can be highly problematic. And perhaps leaving more space for women, giving them more agency within the movement, could be a way to balance things. That could be one of the way that could help. So in chapter 4, the author explores how women try to use their voice within hip hop. So we spoke about Queen Latifah, and the author also talks about other artists who have been able to talk about their experiences with music or by writing biographies about themselves as artists within the hip hop movement. The author explores how writing could be a way to challenge these problematic representations. The author also says that we should encourage more space for healing and introspection, whether it be in lyrics or again in biography, in order to balance things out. Besides the success story of Queen Latifah, the author also talks about Lauryn Hill, the amazing Lauryn Hill, and her amazing album, The Mystification of Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill, who was the first rapper to win Album of the Year at the Grammy Award during the 41st Grammy celebration, and on that evening, she also won 5 Grammys for her solo album, The Mystification of Lauryn Hill. So talk about some groundbreaking art. Lauryn Hill is an example of how um, the work of an artist, the work of an artist within hip hop can also resonate with an audience on a spiritual level. How her experiences can tackle and address a wide range of themes, express some aspect of womanhood, how we can embody different visions and different perspectives on life from the viewpoint of a Black woman. So in chapter 4, the author draws on the work of Queen Latifah, but this time we talk about her memoir, published in 1999, called Ladies First: Revelations of a Strong Woman. And this chapter is actually based, chapter 4 is addressing the myth of the strong Black woman. Alongside this book, the author also studies literary works from Sister Soldier. Sister Soldier, she was an author that I've been reading a lot as well, and Michelle Wallace. So she draws on these literary works to explore the myth of the strong Black woman and the layers to this myth. And that's part of the focus in chapter 4. It's very important, according to the author, to have all these literary works from Black women, especially Black women who are adjacent or Black women who are within the hip hop movement. And at the same time, we have to be mindful. It's important to highlight the richness, the beauty, the complexity, and the variety of Black womanhood, because it's easy to fall into categorization, or it's easy to fall into, is this a word, stereotypicalization. It's easy to do this, and the author here explores the myth of the strong Black woman, which is a dangerous myth. It is, because here there is definitely a double edge on strength and how this term is used. The strong Black woman archetype can be uplifting, it can be inspiring in some context, but it can also be hugely dehumanizing. So the author reminds us that indeed being a strong Black woman was necessary at some point. There was no other option. And this is a point that is discussed in the books of Queen Latifah and Sister Soldier, for instance. Again, this is extensively analyzed in the book. And we have page 120. The Black woman was a mythical self-sacrificing savior to everyone but herself, often leading to emotional and mental breakdown. So, this archetype can seem uplifting and empowering on the surface, but a lot of times the issue is that it is a term that is used to condition Black women to endure abuse or to endure situations where their safety is not a priority. It is a term most of the times used to condition women to suppress their vulnerability, to get them to lower their expectations, to guilt trip them into constant sacrificing of the self, and to silence their emotional needs. So I'm really, really glad that more and more people are talking about the realities under this term, this archetype, because it's a very dangerous one. At times, context and environments forces women or pushes women to suppress their connection with themselves, with their feminine sides, with their need for care, their need for self care, their need for vulnerability. But suppressing all of this often comes at an emotional and spiritual cost. The sad reality is that poverty, exclusion, violence, racism can shape your Black womanhood. It can shape your Black girlhood. Being a strong Black woman is necessary for survival. We have to be realistic as well. But on the long term, if someone's human needs are not met, like needs for emotional and psychological safety, a need for emotional and psychological rest, to be able to be vulnerable, feeling protected, feeling like you matter. If these needs are not met, if these needs are never met, you end up feeling broken down. So that's where we can see being forced to be the strong Black woman indefinitely can be very dangerous. It can push you to adopt survival based coping strategies that can be highly detrimental for your well being, highly detrimental for the nurturing of yourself as a woman. It can lead to problematic attitude, it can lead to self neglect, and unfortunately, it can also lead to internalized misogyny. And personally, the strong Black woman, for some reason, I've I've always felt like this term was a bit incomplete or exclusionary, because I feel like behind it we hide the fact that these Black women go through so much. What do you offer them to survive? What do we offer them to repair themselves? Because this is hiding a lot, a myriad of harsh truth that we don't want to see. In reality, behind this strong Black woman, what can we do to support her and to help her heal? I also feel like this archetype can exclude women who have been broken because they have unfortunately been in life breaking situations, women who might have been victims of abuse and who struggle with this idea of feeling strong because they don't know what safety is. And so, what does it mean to be strong when you live in a house where you are not protected, and now you have to grow up not even knowing what it means to be strong? We need the tools. We don't need archetypes, we don't need labels. We need tools to be protected, to be safe. We need to know that we can be supported in our healing journeys. That's what is needed. So yeah, for some Black women, they might feel that they need more time to heal. They might feel like they need more time to know what being strong is. We need to embrace them and we need to let them know if there was a time in your life where you felt like you could not be strong, or you felt like you've been dehumanized, you felt like dignity has been stolen from you. We need to let them know that we can hold their hand and we can help them, we can show them, we can teach them what it means to be strong. Of course, ideally, everybody would have a childhood, everybody would have a life where they are 100% confident about their strength, about their feeling of safety, about their feeling of belonging, about their community, but that is not the truth. So yeah, I do feel like the archetype of the strong black woman is can be a dangerous one. How can we include these women? How can we make sure they are seen as well, in spite of them feeling broken? And that's why I loved reading Queen Latifah's memoir, Ladies First, because she gave a very inclusive vision of strength, and being a black woman is much more inclusive. I'm going to quote the book, page 113. Similarly, Queen Latifah dedicates her book to every woman who has ever felt like less than royalty. And she writes, I'm writing this book to let every woman know that she too, no matter what her status or her place in life, is royalty. That's what we need. We need to remind women that, you have your days, you have your history, you have your strength, you have your weaknesses, you have your beauty, you have your magic, you have your cracks, you have your scars, but you are strong, you're beautiful, you're blessed, you are royalty. That's what we need. Not empty labels like the strong black woman who can take everything and we can break her and she's not going to complain. She can face any situation without support, without help. She can do it all on her own. No, because we are human beings and humans cannot do that. No one. Everybody needs safety. Everybody needs love. Everybody needs community. Everybody needs support. No one can do it all on their own. This is inhuman and this is dehumanizing. I'm so passionate and I hope I hope I'm still following a thread of discussion. I hope it still all makes sense. I am just so passionate and this book talks about so much about the condition of women, black womanhood. So this speaks to my heart. This puts me on fire. Yes, it does. So the strong black woman myth. Bye. Let's continue to humanize women, black women, and how they are represented in hip hop culture.